Hello, welcome to the Saroy channel. I've got a lovely story for you tonight about a boy in a treehouse who gets to see Bigfoot actually poop in his garden. So I think that's going to be an interesting story. So let's get started. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Dear Sarah and all your listeners, I'm writing to tell you all about my Bigfoot encounter that happened to me as a little boy in 1972. In those days, no one had ever heard of Bigfoot. And if you saw a picture like this and told anyone about it, then they would believe you. It could be thought you were making up a story. Believe me, I know this from cold, hard, personal experience. My story happened in late spring when my father built me my own personal treehouse in the large redwood tree in our garden. My father had always been brilliant with his hands, and he could turn any piece of wood into an art form. My treehouse was far from ordinary. It was large and spacious, and my father also made me furniture to go in it, which included a double bed, a small bookcase, a table and chairs, and small cabinets for storage. So as you can imagine, it was a very special retreat for me and my friends to spend time together, away from the hawk eyes of my parents. In those days, we did not have internet, and so much of our time as young boys was spent playing outdoors, and naturally my treehouse was very popular with my friends. One day a friend came to spend the night with me, and I asked my parents if we could spend the night in the treehouse, and they agreed. My mother prepared us snacks and drinks and gave us an oil lamp to use for lighting and a couple of torches. I will leave the outside light on, she told me, so that at least it will not be too dark for you, because it can be menacing when it's too dark, she said. Armed with all our supplies, we entered the treehouse and made it as cozy as possible. I made up the double bed so that Robert and I could have a good night's sleep, and we filled the bookcase with Enid Blyton novels and books about hunting, and then we settled in for the night. "This is so cool," said Robert, "and so are your parents. My folks would never let me sleep outdoors like this." It was not long before the sun began to set, and it became dark very quickly, and suddenly I was extremely grateful for the outside light my mother had left on, because it really made the darkness, as she had said, a whole lot less menacing, and I could see the area around our garden pretty well. "Wow, it's quiet," Robert remarked. He was right. I'd never heard it so quiet before, and it seemed chillingly airy. There were no coyotes howling in the distance, no owls hooting, and no crickets singing, and surprisingly enough, I heard no dogs barking either. Soon we grew tired and settled down on the large double bed, and before long we fell asleep until we heard a loud rustling sound in the garden. It sounded like someone or something big was walking in our garden. But what? We peered out of the treehouse and could see something moving across our lawn. It was like a large black mass that almost looked humanoid in its appearance. "What is that thing?" I asked Robert. Whatever it was very big. It was about 6 foot tall, and it was exceedingly wide, especially on the chest area. We could see in the light that it was covered in dark black hair, and looked as if rabbit and squirrels and moth. I could tell that its head was shaped like a bullet, and that this thing, whatever it was, had extremely long arms and human-like hands. The creature appeared to be looking through the window of our spare room. I could see him squashing his face against the window and peering in. I knew that my mother's Scottish terrier slept on that bed, so it was worrying me that the creature was staring in at him. Were dogs on his dinner menu, I wondered. I could hear the dog yapping. Clearly he had spotted the creature looking at him, and he wasn't happy. Once the dog started to yap, the creature immediately scurried away and moved gracefully with large strides towards the wild overgrown area at the back of our property that was scattered with ubiquitous trees. "Let's follow him," I urged my friend. "I want to see what this thing is. Did you see how large he was?" "That's the problem," said Robert. "Supposing he's dangerous?" "We'll just make sure he doesn't see us," I said. "Aren't you a teensy bit curious about this weird animal?" "I would rather not follow him," said Robert. "Whatever it is, it looks creepy." "Do you think the famous 5 would be afraid to follow this thing? I'm sure they'd want to find out what it was, because uncovering a mystery was what they were all about. And this is a true mystery if ever I saw one." My bribery did the trick and worked like a charm. Robert agreed to follow the creature, who appeared to be in no hurry to exit our property. As we got closer to the creature, we hid behind a tree and watched the creature, which thankfully we could see a little more clearly in the light. He appeared to be scraping the ground with a large stone and making a large indentation or hole in the ground. He then started squatting over the hole and proceeded to poo. It smelt revolting, and I almost gagged from the stench. The creature then covered the ground with sand and leaf litter and got up again. As he walked away, I noticed him swinging his arms backwards and forwards, and then we could hear him whistling to himself. It almost sounded like the creature was very chilled, easygoing, and pretty happy. "Come," I whispered to Robert. "I think this thing is harmless. Look, he whistles just like a human. Let's keep following him. Do you not want to see where he goes?" As we followed him, we crouched beneath the long grass and lowered our bodies so as not to be seen, but Robert was not as careful as me, and he gave the game away by crunching some broken twigs on the grass. Suddenly the creature's head turned around, his eyes darted to where we were crouching in the grass. For a moment, all three pairs of eyes just locked in a huge stare. I think the creature looked surprised to see us and almost did not know how to react. I got the impression that he was unprepared for the encounter as we were. For a moment there was a long silence, and then the creature just turned and walked away with large 5-foot strides that increased in pace, and then he just seemed to disappear and almost vanish before our eyes. I hasten to say that not for 1 second was I afraid, and neither was that creature. I truly believe he would never have harmed us. Robert and I were so excited by what we had seen that day, and we spent the rest of the rest of the night sitting up and talking about the creature. The big question on our minds was, what had we actually seen? We had never heard of a creature that looked like this. It was almost as if the creature was like a humanoid ape, and it appeared to be highly intelligent and also incredibly strong, muscular, and big. And I had felt a weird, unwritten connection with the thing, whatever that was. I did not see the creature again, but I did ponder over the years what I had seen that night in the treehouse. I had told my mother about the experience, but I could tell by the way she looked at me that she thought I was making up stories, which was incredibly frustrating because she should have known me better than that. Strange things happened on our property from time to time, which made me believe that the creature came around occasionally. We once found a turkey carcass on the ground where all the feathers had been neatly placed in a large pile, which my parents thought was quite bizarre. We also found vegetables were being pinched from our garden from time to time, and every year our orchard apples on the trees would disappear from the branches to as high as 8 feet off the ground. My mother never minded about that, because she would never have used the apples anyway, but she did always wonder who the apple thief was. It was only in more recent years that I discovered that we had seen a Bigfoot, so I feel privileged to have seen one, and I do know they exist. We were lucky that the Bigfoot we saw was not aggressive, because our encounter could have been very different for us if he had been. Hope you enjoyed my story. Until next time, good night and goodbye.